Terence Stamp, one of the most enduring and enigmatic figures of British cinema, has passed away at the age of 87. His death, confirmed on Sunday by his family to the New York Times, marks the end of a career that spanned more than 6 decades, filled with reinvention, triumphs, heartbreaks, and the quiet resilience of an actor who was never afraid to follow his instincts, even when those instincts took him down unexpected and sometimes risky paths. For audiences across the globe, Stamp was more than just a performer. He was an embodiment of an era, a symbol of change in the 1960s, and later an actor who adapted to the new rules of Hollywood without ever losing the mystery that surrounded him. Born on July 22, 1938, in London's East End, Stamp's beginnings were as humble as they come. He grew up in a working-class family where the notion of a career in the arts was not only improbable but practically unthinkable. His father was a tugboat captain on the Thames, his mother a homemaker, and together they raised 6 children in a household where survival and work ethic mattered more than dreams of stardom. Yet, even as a boy, Terence harbored a sense that his life was meant to extend beyond the narrow streets he grew up on. He would later say that the seeds of his career were planted when he stumbled upon a screening of an old Gary Cooper film from the 1930s. Watching Cooper's quiet strength and charisma on screen, Stamp realized there was a kind of masculine grace that could exist outside the toughness of dockyards or the everyday grind of labor. That single moment ignited a spark that would eventually define his destiny. With determination that seemed almost reckless for someone from his background, Stamp pursued acting. He secured a scholarship to study drama, where he immediately stood out for his intensity and striking looks. Unlike many of his peers, Stamp didn't merely study the craft. He embodied it, finding ways to project both vulnerability and ferocity at the same time. His tall, lean frame, piercing blue eyes, and chiseled cheekbones made him instantly magnetic. By the time he made his British television debut in 1960, he was already being whispered about as one of the country's most promising young talents. But it was his role in Billy Budd, 1962, that catapulted him to overnight fame. Playing the angelic young sailor doomed by the darker forces around him, Stamp delivered a performance that was both tender and devastating. It earned him an Academy Award nomination straight out of the gate, a rare feat that confirmed he was not only a new face but a genuine force in cinema. With his sudden fame came a new identity. Stamp became one of the angry young men of British cinema, a movement that captured the restless spirit of post-war Britain. Alongside contemporaries like Albert Finney, Richard Harris, and Tom Courtenay, Stamp represented a new kind of screen hero, raw, disillusioned, passionate, and unwilling to play by the old aristocratic rules of film. Screen, his life reflected the same rebellious energy. He became a sex symbol, as famous for his romances as for his acting. His relationships with supermodel Jean Shrimpton and actress Julie Christie made headlines, fusing his image with the glamour and decadence of the swinging 60s. But Stamp was never content with being just a pretty face or a tabloid favorite. His performances reflected a deep seriousness, a desire to explore complex psychological landscapes. In 1964, when the hit British play Alfie moved to Broadway, Stamp played the lead role and received critical acclaim. Yet when he was later asked to star in the 1966 film version, he turned it down, leaving the part to his former roommate Michael Caine, who made it a career-defining role. The decision was emblematic of Stamp's career. He often avoided the obvious path, preferring roles that challenged him rather than guaranteed fame. One of his greatest triumphs came in 1965 with The Collector, directed by William Wyler. Stamp's portrayal of a disturbed young man who kidnaps and imprisons a woman, played by Samantha Eggar, was chillingly effective. The role earned him the Best Actor award at the Cannes Film Festival and cemented his reputation as a daring, risk-taking actor unafraid to embody darkness. The following years saw him expand his repertoire with films like Far from the Madding Crowd, 1967, Poor Cow, 1967, Blue, 1968, and Spirits of the Dead, 1968, where he worked under the direction of cinematic giants like Federico Fellini. But perhaps most famously, he starred in Pier Paolo Pasolini's Teorema, 1968, a controversial avant-garde masterpiece where Stamp played a mysterious stranger who seduces every member of a bourgeois family. The film, drenched in symbolism and erotic tension, showcased Stamp at his most enigmatic and cemented his reputation as an international sex symbol and artistic provocateur. For a time, Stamp seemed unstoppable, but by the 1970s, his career hit a period of uncertainty. Roles became scarcer, and the shifting landscape of cinema left him somewhat adrift. Yet just as it seemed his star was fading, a new chapter began. In 1978, Stamp was cast as General Zod, the villain in Richard Donner's Superman. The role was a revelation. As the menacing Kryptonian exile with a commanding voice and piercing glare, Stamp reintroduced himself to a new generation of audiences. His performance was iconic, and his booming line "Kneel before Zod" became one of the most quoted lines in superhero film history. He reprised the role in Superman 2, 1980, and for the rest of his life, fans continued to associate him with the unforgettable villain. Stamp himself would later remark that Zod was the character he was asked about more than any other. The 1980s and early 1990s brought an eclectic mix of roles. He starred in Stephen Frears's The Hit, 1984, opposite John Hurt and a young Tim Roth, delivering a haunting performance as a gangster confronting mortality. He appeared in Hollywood films like Legal Eagles, 1986, Wall Street, 1988, and Alien Nation, 1988, each time bringing a touch of gravitas that elevated the material. Then, in 1994, came another turning point, The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. Cast as Bernadette, a transgender drag performer traveling across the Australian outback with two younger companions, Stamp initially approached the role with hesitation. He feared the logistics of filming in remote desert locations and wondered whether he was the right fit for such an unconventional role. Yet once the cameras rolled, he found himself immersed in what he would later describe as the most enjoyable experience of his career. His performance was both sharp and tender, capturing Bernadette's wit, resilience, and quiet dignity. Critics praised him unanimously, and the film became a cult classic, launching the career of Guy Pearce and cementing Stamp's reputation as a fearless actor willing to defy expectations. By the late 1990s, Stamp was experiencing something of a renaissance. In 1999 alone, he appeared in 3 very different projects: the screwball comedy Bowfinger with Steve Martin and Eddie Murphy's Star Wars, Episode 1 The Phantom Menace as Chancellor Valorum, and Steven Soderbergh's The Limey, in which he played an aging gangster out for revenge. The Limey in particular was hailed as one of his finest performances, a raw and haunting portrayal of an older man still burning with fury and grief. His later career included roles in Get Smart, 2008, Valkyrie, 2008, Tim Burton's Big Eyes, 2014, and Adam Sandler's Murder Mystery, 2019. His final feature film performance came in Edgar Wright's Last Night in Soho, 2021, a stylish horror film that also featured the last appearance of another British icon, Diana Rigg. Beyond film, Stamp made memorable contributions to television. From 2003 to 2011, he voiced Jor-El, Superman's father, in the series Smallville. His rich, commanding voice brought a gravitas that elevated the show's mythos. Away from the screen, he also expressed himself through writing, authoring several memoirs that were praised for their poetic style and candid reflections: Stamp Album, 1987, Coming Attractions, 1988, Double Feature, 1989, Rare Stamps, Reflections on Living, Breathing and Acting, 2011, and The Ocean Fell into the Drop, 2017. In addition, he wrote a novel, The Night, 1993, and even co-wrote a healthy eating book, reflecting his lifelong interest in wellness and spirituality. Stamp's personal life was as intriguing as his career. Married only once, he experienced love, loss, and solitude, but often seemed more focused on his craft and inner journey than on traditional domestic life. His brother Chris Stamp, who became famous for managing The Who and Jimi Hendrix, passed away in 2012, a loss that deeply affected him. In later years, Stamp lived a quieter life, often in Italy or Los Angeles, cultivating a sense of peace after decades in the spotlight. His death at 87 closes a chapter not just for his family and friends but for generations of film lovers. Stamp embodied an era but also transcended it, continually reinventing himself across the decades. From the young sailor in Billy Budd to the cruel but unforgettable General Zod, from the tender Bernadette in Priscilla to the vengeful Wilson in The Limey, He left behind a gallery of characters that spoke to the complexity of human nature. Terence Stamp was not simply an actor. He was an artist whose career reflected the restless, searching spirit of someone who never settled for the easy choice. His passing is a reminder that true stars don't just shine during their time, they leave a light that continues to illuminate the path for others long after they are gone.